And this is the March 6th meeting of the Permanent Memorial Subcommittee. It is a Zoom meeting, so we're going to do a roll call. I will roll call according to the boxes I see from left to right. Please say here or I when I call your name. Joe Palumbo.
Here.
Tui Rogers here. Joseph Hibbard.
Here.
Polly Reeve.
Here.
Krista Collins. You're muted, I think. Krista Collins.
Can you hear me?
You're just
There we
super
go.
quiet.
Oh,
Okay. You're
You're very subtle.
so sibilant. And Kate James.
Here.
Okay. And is that Nancy Frizella Lee or Nancy Nelson? I see. Is Nancy
I think
Frizella Lee?
that's Nancy Nelson, probably.
Okay.
Nancy's Frizella Lee usually has her whole name.
Right.
There's
There she is. All
Nelson.
right. So hi, Nancy. Nancy Frizella Lee, we're just doing roll call. If you could say here. Just hit your.
She's still muted, and
Yeah.
It's coming. You're okay, Tui.
Okay.
I'm here.
Nancy.
Here.
All right, good. Nancy's here. Okay, so we are ready to go. So the first item, and we're up and running, is I had mistyped. It's the minutes were for February 30th, not January. Was it 30th or 20th, Polly, actually?
it was
No,
February
February
20th.
20th. Thank you. That was just a complete, yeah. Anyway, it's on the minutes as such. So did anyone have any erratum style questions or issues with the minutes? Can we approve them?
So moved.
No questions or comments?
Okay,
Anyone want
I
to move to approve?
move that we approve the minutes.
Second? Anyone to second? All right, great. Let's vote to approve. Joe?
Yes.
Tui, yes. Joe Hibbard?
Yes.
Polly Reeve?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Kate?
Yep.
And Nancy?
Yep.
Okay, we approved the minutes and Joe, I'll turn it over to you for check-in and the next steps.
We always make a little time on the agenda for check-in. Does anyone have any items of, hey, something I've heard that should be clarified, or just time to check in on any items needed for public clarification about our work?
Well, I will say, I keep hearing around the hustings, as we say, worry that somehow our subcommittee is going to do in or eliminate the Thoreau marker. And I just want to say, I think we've said this before, we are not. In fact, we're very interested in keeping Thoreau, if anything, making the marker better. So no, just get rid of any notions that we're going to get rid of or destroy or move somewhere, to another part of town, that marker.
That's, as a town guide, I know everyone who gives a town tour goes to that marker and always talks about the benefit of bringing it further up so that you don't have to have a guide with you to see it, because right now that's most of the only people who find it. So yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Any other items that people have heard needed for public clarification? If none, all right. So I see on the agenda too, you have 250 trees promotion and celebration strategies, which Krista kind of highlighted a few weeks ago. We said we'd get back to it, so we're getting back to it today. So I turn it over to Krista.
Okay, thanks. And just some really good news today. Well, I had really bad news last week, which was that the contract that I thought was signed in January was not signed till last week with the tree planting service. So I guess there are real problems with the procurement office in town, and there are a lot of contracts that are languishing. So I was very disappointed that we had lost all that time that I thought trees were being procured and sites were being vetted, but everything's fine because I met today with Eric Shaw, our tree warden, and the contractor for a kickoff meeting. A Wagon Wheel, the contractor, they were great. They are ready to go. They're going to be reviewing our list of sites. Because they have a tree nursery, they said getting the trees isn't getting a problem. They already ordered trees, and they're ordering trees anyway. So everything that's on our list, there's stuff that they would be getting anyway in their stock, and so we don't have to kind of worry about not being able to get trees at this point. They are going to try to prioritize some. I'm going to help them identify some sites, like prominent sites, that hopefully we can get trees in before April 19th, so we can have some around Concord Center and in the in the prominent places in West Concord, so people will see those when they come that week. And they said they could plant like 40 to 50 trees a week, weather cooperating. So it's really not going to be as dire as I was fearing time wise. I think they seemed really great, and they said they really love doing these projects, municipal projects. They did 250 trees in Somerville. They did 250 trees in Haverhill. They've done Greening the Gateway Cities projects. So I think they were like, don't worry about, we can deal with traffic. We can deal with like tight spaces, so it was, I felt so much better after that meeting today.
Yeah.
So
Right.
good.
You guys picked a good contractor, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Joe, for that endorsement too, Joe Hibbard.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
I met with my volunteer group again, and we're trying to kind of narrow down some options for tree tags. But we really, I think, and then I have the Green Thumbs are going to help with a celebration in West Concord. I need someone to kind of help thinking about a celebration in Concord Center. We would have to probably work with the library if we wanted to do a celebration around that tree that's going in at the library. And then, ideas really about how we memorialize this project for the future, I think, is what we need to start thinking about next. And how do we want to catalog these and track them over time?
Is that what you want us to, is that what you'd like a discussion about?
Yeah, I think if people have ideas, especially artistic people like Kate, about how we might, is this a photo? Do we do a photographic essay or something like that?
I have so many ideas. I don't know which ones to share right now. Do you want should we meet later? I mean, I don't feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to, I'd be happy to sit with you, over coffee and just brainstorm.
I mean,
that'd
everything,
be fine.
Sculptures to QR codes to scarves to, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, and maybe all of the above. Who knows? But, yeah.
Okay.
Krista, talk to Polly at Polly Reeve, who does the publicity. I mean, sorry, it's a long day. I apologize, Polly Reeve. Polly Meyer does the publicity, because they've now got this little podcast they're doing on 250 things. And that would be a great sort of in the interview about the trees and all the stuff you just told us. I think that'd be one thing that would be fun to do. It's super easy. It's very casual. And then Minuteman also for free would make you a little like a teaser video, or they call sizzle reel type things, where you take them to a couple of the tree plantings, and they'll shoot the footage, and then you just tell them, I wanted a minute of interesting stuff, like the day Wagon Wheel's doing a bunch of stuff, and they go get it for you, and it's all free, and it's the town will do that for you.
We've had them do interview artists here, and they do a great job.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And
So
they
Minuteman
love-
Media Network.
Yeah. Because so much of their
Right.
time, especially running up to town meeting, is lots of meetings. They love to get to do creative things that aren't, shooting another, meeting. So they love this kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. If you have a contact there,
Yeah, if you go to, I'll send you the email of who to talk to, but there's a little form right on the Minuteman Media site. You fill out the form, and that kind of generates their system. But
Okay.
Julie is the head. I forget her last name, but I'll send you her email.
Okay, thank you. All right, I love that idea. And then, I don't know if it makes sense to have the bridge do another piece, maybe at the I feel like they're gonna have so much to cover in the next month or so, probably leading right up to town meeting, that maybe we want to wait for them to do something in a slower season. They're looking for stories.
When you think about the one you want to do in Concord Center, are you thinking in April, or are you thinking like Arbor Day, or have you not? You have a
It would, you mean the plantings?
Yeah, you said there was one already planned for West Concord, but the one for Concord Center.
The event.
The event, yeah.
No, I had no idea when, because I wasn't really sure when the trees were going to go in, but if we can get them to prioritize at least the one at the library. I think, we had talked about the fact that there's nothing on the calendar after April 19th. So even that week,
Yeah, vacation week, yeah.
yeah. There's already going to be an Arbor Day celebration that the Garden Club does every year.
Because that's the 25th. So that's like 6 days after the 250th,
Yeah.
which might be
Yeah.
tight. I think there might be
Yeah.
some metal fatigue after the
Right.
June 19th.
And actually, I still haven't kind of pulled the trigger on a plaque for that tree. So the other thing is we could wait and do something. Oh no, the other idea was to do something on around Ag Day, since people would be in Concord Center for that, and then we could tag on a celebration at the library. That's right. That was the plan.
That's good. That's in the fall, isn't it? Or August
Yeah,
or
it's usually
something?
the first weekend,
Early
September-ish.
Has there been any conversation, I'm sorry, about putting some kind of monument in our new memorial park for the trees? Have we ever talked
Oh.
about that? I didn't know if we did or not.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
I think partly we had originally, when we were first thought we might actually be breaking ground at this year. I think we were hopeful that maybe we could actually plant a tree on that site, but we're not going to be planting a tree on that site. So,
But that's worth considering, Kate. That's another
yeah.
piece.
We could, there's the artist, I think I talked to somebody about, some of you, who wraps trees with wire and creates a tree shadow out of wire, and we could do something with that person. There's another artist who paints all the trunks of trees blue, and to commemorate, it's about deforestation. That's what their work is about. But there's a lot of tree artists that we can talk about, Krista, if you want to.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So Krista, is that helpful? Do you want to talk more about this?
No, that's okay. That's fine. Kate, I'll be in touch.
Okay. Yep. Let's do it.
Not for probably a week or so, but we'll get together.
Okay.
Come up with some ideas. Okay.
Because I do think, as we said last week, it'd be really great to have a pretty substantive kickoff. I love the idea of Ag Day because there are a lot of people in town that day. People plan for that. And what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, and then we talked about doing the West Concord one on West Concord Day, and I can never remember when that is.
I thought every day is West Concord Day.
You're just biased, Joe.
I was making space for Joe, Hibbert, and Polly and Nancy. Do you have any thoughts or advice for Krista, or any ideas or anything you want to say before we leave the tree topic?
I just thought the idea of some kind of documentation of the tree planting process, you could get pictures of wagon wheel installing and then post installation, just so that there was a record if someone in the future wants to look back and say, what was the 250 memorial tree processor or, about, they could go to the library and find this
Yeah.
compendium of photos.
True.
Yeah.
Nancy?
Hi, I don't know what's happening with the, if there's going to be, I'm sure there will be a 250 brochure for sort of souvenir brochure. Um, Joe Palumbo, you might know more about that. But is there going to be mention of the tree project in that? That would be a great place to have a permanent record, because all of these things will go, we've all looked back at special collections for information about previous commemorations. And that's just one place that it could be documented.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nancy. I think there's something, but Chris, you should ask Polly.
Okay.
Because Polly's connected to Diane, and they're the ones who are like really kind of making sure all stuff gets done right.
Mhm.
If you tell her what you're trying to do, what Nancy and Joe just mentioned, she might be able to say, "Oh, it can go in the." She'll like know what it is.
Okay.
Polly?
Just one other, and this, it goes along with the chronicling of the planting, but it would be really neat if there was some plan to take tree portraits every few years to watch these trees growing over
know,
time,
such
at
a
least
cool
the sort
idea.
of prominent ones. I mean, that's like a long-term project, which is always a little dicey to make sure it's going to happen, but it would be really cool because trees grow, and once they're established, they grow fast, and it would just be, I mean, I don't know that you can do 250 tree portraits. That might be a bit of
Yeah,
an
but
ambitious
Top
undertaking,
50 or
but
something, yeah.
you know, yeah.
That's a
And you had the
perfect,
people who planted them and then watch them grow up, and oh, it could be pretty
Oh, if you had a
good.
picture, yeah, of a kid there the day it went in, and then
Oh, I
yeah.
love that.
yeah.
Or it could be an Instagram thing where a lot
Yes.
of people each year take pictures of the trees.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah,
And
It's a,
that's right. Like
taking
decentralize
pictures
it.
is not that hard
but it's
anymore.
also, it's the longevity over time. It's a perfect thing for schools where if it rested in the science department over time, it could be a thing, which would be a way to keep it going.
Mhm.
Some of us
Yeah,
are
we
getting
could bring
older.
back the tree project and have them
I
focus on.
know,
Oh.
I know. Ah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love it, Polly. I love the idea of going, like, trying to figure out a way to go back and revisit them every
Yeah,
so often.
it would be pretty special, I think.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just
Yeah.
wanted to say is, Krista, you've done such an amazing job with this.
I know.
Just such a
Brava,
wonderful
brava.
project. So
So true.
bravo. And also you should, like, when things need to be done, you should let us all know that you need help.
Okay,
Because you
thank
can't
you.
get it all on your own.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It would seem
Yeah,
that you might
you're all
want your own,
required to attend the celebration.
yeah, but you might need your own small working group within our group to deal with the celebration itself.
Yeah.
It would seem when the time
Yeah.
comes when you.
Especially if it's not, if it's after the 19th, lots of us can help you. I'm
Right.
Yes,
sure.
thank you. Yeah, and some of the other working group volunteers are also signed up to help with that too. So that's good.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, here enough, and let's move on to the next agenda item. And if you remember the last few meetings, we've been working on, it's been a small group that's been working on a presentation. So sort of next steps on parcel 1693. And the last time Polly presented sort of where they were at with their work, and we got feedback from the committee and feedback from the public, and their charge was to like take that and kind of take it to the next step. And I think Tui or Polly is going to present that today. And I believe that Shannon set this up, so you should be able to share any pictures or screen you want to. So I'll
Okay.
turn it over to you.
So I will share it, but I will say that Polly and Joe took the brunt of this. Nancy was in England just having a blast. No, we talked. She was on task, and I was pretty much on Oxycontin, whatever, for some of this time. So let's just say hats off to Joe and Polly. And however, they put together a draft PowerPoint of where it's gone. And I think this is really the third iteration since our little working group has been together, and it may not be the last, but just want to tell all of you that the idea behind this is look at the organization. We're trying to make this very clear, and please give comments as to just how this all works. We still don't know exactly where it's going to go. I think we're going to keep figuring that out. Chamber of Commerce, Rotary Club, high school, wherever, as well as public forums. But let me sort of run through the PowerPoint that Joe and Polly have put together, and then I'll go back to it, and we will go through it piece by piece. And I will also say, since it's 5:21, we're not going to try to do a road race here. However far we get today by 6, we'll wrap it up because we want to save time for public comments and stuff like that. And we'll resume after this at our next meeting, whenever that can take place. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to try to go to share screen and see what can happen. Did that work?
Yes.
Okay, so you see. Okay, so
Perfect.
great.
Very
All
good.
right. So I'm going to walk through this. There's a little bit of a preamble, and then we'll get to their 5 separate types of things that they've come up with. So preamble just talks about the town. I'll let people read it if you can see it, and I'll just summarize that, we're honoring our leadership role in the birth of our country. And some of the memorials that have been put up are Simon Willard's Battle Monument. You've seen that. It's good to remember, it was for the 1825 anniversary, but it did take 11 years to kind of finally get it together. Some sharing with where we are now. And of course, the Minuteman, the famous Minuteman of 1875. So we have really undertaken 2 projects. And Krista was just talking about the trees. We really have not given enough credit to the trees, which are quite something. Throughout town, a living monument celebrating our revolutionary past as well as our aspirations for the future. And regardless of what's happening in Washington, it's a demonstration of our town's commitment to a more sustainable and resilient planet, and a gift to those students and future generations of Concord and elsewhere. And for the other thing that we've really done is worked on the thing we're going to be talking about now, which is the memorial itself. The possibility of creating a memorial park as a welcoming place, regardless of what it is, given the nature of that green space. It's going to be a contemplative park because we really can't build on the middle of it. So a gathering place at the heart of town, a site that we're proposing a small piece, that's the parcel 1693, is given to the town in the 125th anniversary. We want to keep remembering that. And it's currently unused and kind of, it could use a bit of refurbishing. So the goal really is to create a park that will honor, and I will read this whole thing, and I can't read it on this screen, but is to create a park that will honor our nation's history, reflect today's challenges and accomplishments, and withstand the test of time, remain relevant and inspiring well into the future. And in addition to being a pleasant, useful space for residents and visitors alike, the park will celebrate the ideals of liberty and justice for all. The subcommittee worked with Sasaki Associates, a Boston-based design firm, to create a conceptual design that memorializes the lives and legacies of people with ties to Concord who devoted their lives to these values, including women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as previously unknown Concord soldiers who died in the American Revolution. However, because there are multiple approaches that the design of the Concord Memorial 250 Memorial Park could adopt in fulfilling its purpose, and because some residents have questioned the approach taken to date, before proceeding further, we seek feedback and suggestions from the public. And now we have 5 approaches. And I just want to say that even this presentation is the result of feedback from the public, feedback from some of the people on this Zoom and others. The whole process, we are really trying to flex and adapt. So here are the approaches. They include developing the conceptual design that we already know of, prepared for the subcommittee by Sasaki Associates. Oops, wait, I'm sorry. I'm one off.
Start with 1. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm sorry. Thank you. They are numbered for me to keep them in order. Moving forward with designing and constructing the Memorial Park just as a park, an attractive, useful space that would sort of allow for incorporate mission-related elements in the future. And that involves stuff that we've talked about before, grading it, the vegetation, making it more welcoming, benches, a place for gathering, and really with the idea that maybe at the 400th anniversary for the whole town in 2035, having the next step of a memorial element. So that's sort of the do the least amount in the location. The second is to develop the conceptual design prepared for the subcommittee by Sasaki Associates, which is based on stories of local heroes and the ongoing struggle for liberty and justice, and honoring the indigenous people who lived here for thousands of years before the Europeans arrived. I think everybody here understands, knows about this, but the key thing is this approach employs a narratives displayed in traditional memorial forms constructed in glass, which is a non-traditional material, as well as a minimalist stone wall place as a sculptural element to convey a sense of time. This is really a narrative-focused design, and we already have some of these in Concord, up on Brister's Hill, the Thoreau, the Seuss, the Lorax, and then the quotes in the circle. There are stone and things, but the focus is the words in these. And the one considered here with these stelae would have the words on them, and the architectural aspect would be really subordinate to the words. Here we have an example of the words. Here's another example of this kind of stelae, and then another picture. That's the narrative content. The third would be pursuing a more traditional approach, including let me see, I'm doing this on 2 things so I can read it. Including a memorial element recognizing the Concord soldiers and other individuals engaged in the struggle for liberty and justice. This is something we're very familiar with in Concord. It's sort of how we get the names to be shown. And here are examples from around Concord. We're all very familiar with this. We have all the names except for those who died in the American Revolution, of course. But we're familiar with this. This is a very traditional approach focused on not so much narrative, although there's narrative under the French statute, but on the sculptural design with the names. And the fourth would be really seeking an installation symbolizing Concord's leading role in our country, the struggle for liberty and justice for all, which would be the complement to the narrative, the sort of a stone or glass that has just the narrative on it. This would be much more traditional. You would all recognize these kinds of things. We've got others in Concord where the sculpture itself is to leave you with the expression of, the expression of, Concord's leading role in the birth of our country, the expression of the ongoing struggle for liberty and justice for all. And there are different ways that could be. That's the Gould one in Boston, and then of course Frederick Douglass. So this would be again, you can see what that means. And of course, if you went for this is 2025 now, and some of the submissions, I don't know, Kate, if you want to talk about the bottom left is a very good example of the kind of thing that's being done more modern. That's a Liberty Cap by an artist named Purye. Did you want to say anything, Kate, or?
All right. I don't know if that particular one could go outside. I think it's just indoor, but there are
We'd look at the shapes.
things like it. Yeah. So it's a cap, a Liberty Cap that has a long, long history since Greek times, but was adopted by people of Concord. I think I was told actually by somebody that it was put on the Revolutionary flag that we
I've heard
lost.
that too. Yeah.
That we have lost. Do not know what it looks like, but it was one of these caps was put on the top of that flagpole. So I thought that was interesting. But just the fact that Martin Puryear, who's an African American sculptor, he's in his 90s, but he has created. This has been his sculptures often deal with social justice subjects, and his Liberty Cap, or Phrygian cap, as it's called, also that's one of the motifs. That's one of the symbols he uses.
Okay.
And there was just a drawing of one in the Democracy for All exhibition at the MFA. And I tried, so I went to the gallery and they said, well, actually, we've sold all the prints now since that exhibition. So they're no longer available if you want one, but so they're popular right now. I don't know. There's a lot of other sculptors. This is just an example of somebody who works within that subject.
Okay. Well, thank you. So anyway, you see the range. We are in Concord used to these kinds of memorials, but if you went out to search, we are no longer in the 18th and early 20th century. And then finally, there is another option Joe and Polly came up with, which is really creating the park space, as number one indicated, but opening it up to temporary public art installations over time. And we actually have one right now in Freedom Silhouette, the bench with Ellen Garrison and Henry David Thoreau sitting opposite each other. So that's a, then that would be removed and another would be put in, another different kind of thing. So that's the sort of the fifth option to look at this memorial park in different iterations. So I think it's important to read this, that the 250th anniversary of events that led to the formation of the US of A is a rare opportunity for all of us. And I think we all view it that way, to, the values that they symbolize and the continuing work of living by those values, which I think everyone in this room feels all the more critical in this particular time in America. Creating a special new space in the heart of Concord to mark this anniversary, a space that lifts up these values and invites current and future generations to reflect on the never-ending work of realizing them. It is also a rare opportunity, and we invite everyone in our community to be a part of it. And that's sort of our ask at the end, to get people, wherever we show this or whatever pieces of this we show, involved in talking about the five or whatever we end up with iterations or options to make this happen. And I just, before I go back to this and seek comments, I want to say that whatever we end up with, we now have the 21 names that Beth Van Duzer has discovered of the war dead, if you will, from Concord. And those names we want to put them somewhere. We need to put them somewhere. So we're going to be focused on getting them somewhere, whether we take option 2, which is having that be the only thing, or not. We will find a place for them to go, and that can be part of our discussion as we go forward. So I'm going to skip back to the top of this, and we'll start at the top. And please weigh in on the main thing obviously is Joe and Polly have come up with 5 different ways. If you remember the first, and I think most people here were at the first public forum, people were saying, oh, we like the idea of a memorial, but we don't know it's too vague. Now we have examples of what it would not, in one case of what it very much would look like, but in other cases of the kind of thing it would look like if we chose that approach. Okay, so
Can I ask you a question, Chewy? What kind of feedback does the working group want from the whole group? Do you want feedback in general of the whole PowerPoint? Do you want feedback on each of the 5? What would be helpful to you guys?
So I think actually, Polly and Joe, I thought we would go through it, but maybe before I go back through it, because we can take it apart piece by piece, maybe a few general observations, if you have them, Kate, Krista, and you too, Joe.
So yeah, that makes sense. Let's do just general feedback on the overall concept, and then maybe go into more detail second. That way people can do both.
Any ideas? Krista?
Yeah, so thank you for all the hard work that clearly went into it. And I really think you did a nice job of maintaining, what we worked and what Sasaki worked so hard to produce, while opening it up to other ideas and, and keeping with kind of the progression of our discussion to date. So I like that we have a lot of things that people can give us feedback on. I don't know if this is the right time to share this.
Go for it.
I've really been struggling. I've been thinking a lot about the 19 names of the war dead since our last meeting, and I think it's fantastic that we know who these people are now. I think it's an incredibly important time to recognize them. I think it would be a disappointment if we decided to go with our original concept or something like it, and it included those names. And the reason I say that is because when we started, we learned that there are more statues of mermaids in this country than women. There are more, and I would be very surprised if there weren't more mermaid statues than statues of people with color. And what we're talking about doing is taking maybe 150 square feet and dedicating it to people of color and women and people whose stories haven't been told. That's where we started, and even though we're just learning the names of the Revolutionary War soldiers, their story has been told, writ large. We know what happened to white men who fought in the Revolution. And I wish we could I hope we can find another place to recognize those names. But I feel like it dilutes what we're trying to say here by including them.
Thank you.
I might say, Krista, that we did have that very same discussion. And we asked ourselves, how do we bring them together? And in my mind, at this point, another way of looking at it is that these were the people who were in the original fight. And we put them in the same place as the people who then continued the fight through many different variations and over time. And in some ways, putting those whose stories haven't been told in close association with the original fighters enhances them. It puts them on the same stature of people who gave their lives. So our thinking has gone back and forth for the very reasons that you noted, but I think at this point we're saying we could make this a compatible extension of the same fight and have it be a positive thing. The other thing I should note that it wasn't mentioned is that Kate really helped Polly and myself to synthesize this a great deal and was a very creative and sounding board for us. So I just wanted to mention that. I was going to mention it when Tui was introducing us, but Kate had left the room at that point. So
Oh,
missed the
sorry.
point.
Thank you, Kate, for that, though.
Mhm.
I would like to add, I've thought a lot about this, and well, we all have, everybody has, but I just read a book, as did Polly, a book club book called The Ride, or Paul Revere's Ride, which is arguably the only historical book on Paul Revere. Everything else is kind of, almost fictional or hysterical or whatever. And as the militia were driven out of Concord through Lexington and Arlington back to Boston, people from the houses along the way were firing at them, and the British would go into the houses and kill the women and children. And, this has happened in, as many civilians died in World War I and World War II as combatants, maybe more. Look at Gaza, Ukraine. I don't need to go into that. The fact is, the people who were combatants until very recently could only be men. And so it was sort of a club. Most of the people whose names are in our Monument Square are men. It's
All, I believe.
all of them. So it's finally, I agree with what you'd said, Krista, or just in general, it really has been grossly unfair throughout history to only acknowledge the people who were honored to be able to pick up arms and fight over the people who were killed, who were unable to do that. You just have to say that. And this is a chance to recognize that. And whether we do it in the way that you said, Joe, which I think is very elegant, or by putting those names in Monument Square itself or by the North Bridge or whatever, yes, we'll recognize those names and we need to. But I also feel that finally recognizing all those people who have been eliminated from the club is a valid thing to do.
One of the things I like what the committee did was I like the 5 paths you gave, 5 options. Point they'll make for a really good conversation.
You broke up there,
ability
Joe.
of
Could you?
Facilitator to have a good conversation. I was saying that I really like the 5. No.
Okay, yeah.
How about now?
You're good now. So, but
Okay.
you said you liked the 5 and then you broke
Did
up.
you give 5 options for people to look at and paths? Because I think from a process standpoint of any kind of meeting you create, it's easy to facilitate when you give people options to look at. So I think that was really strong how you created 5 different ways to look at it and opens it up.
Okay.
I have a comment. Is it possible to do all of it? All 5? I mean,
How do you mean, Kate? Expand.
well, I mean, if you have a memorial park, you could have, and there's perhaps you could have different sites, maybe 3 different sites for 3 different objects within it. I mean,
So,
that's usually what people like to do in a park. It's a sculpture park. You walk from thing to thing, and the relationship between the 3 objects enhances your understanding of history and your current situation. I think that's the sort of beauty of a space like this, is that it's like you're inside a gallery and you can see how the different elements of it interact in your own head. And certainly a tour guide could also facilitate that.
Yeah.
so
But
the
I think that's an important thing to note, is that this is not in a vacuum. It's in Monument Square, which is like a giant museum.
Mhm.
It's there's things not very far away. There's
Right, everywhere.
buildings.
Everywhere you look,
There's
there's something. Yeah.
there's so much happening there that I think it's really important to integrate this within it and maybe somehow draw those pieces together.
That's
so
cool.
it's
Does that make
interesting.
sense to you?
Yes,
Cool idea.
it's one, I,
Should we?
one of the issues is that, or Joe, would you rather I not respond to that?
No, I just want to make sure we have time, because we're looking at time. Why don't we give
Oh,
space
yeah.
for Nancy and Polly? They haven't
Right.
logged in on this yet, so we can get their feedback and also have time for public comment.
Good point. We should do that. And there's public comment. Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
I think the
So
answer to
Nancy-
Kate's question is yes.
Yeah.
And we also had some slides we put together that had examples of memorials that included both artwork and narrative. So I think the 5 categories are not pure.
Okay, good. That's all I'm asking is, let's not say, oh, it's, you can only have one of
Right.
them.
Right.
Maybe it's all, maybe it's 2, I don't know, whatever it is. Mhm.
So Polly, Nancy, do you have any feedback, comments, questions to the working group?
Well, I would just say that this this presentation that Tui gave is really for our purposes, and I think it will need to be, well, it'll need to be adapted for various different types of meetings or discussions, and really the narrative in the beginning. I don't imagine that we would, I mean, this is up to the group to decide, but that we want to have a whole lot of text slides. I think that's the narrative that that facilitator or a leader would be providing to help frame up the conversation and the opportunity to give feedback. And I'm glad that Joe said that the 5 aren't mutually exclusive, because I think that's important. It's a way of sorting and organizing. And I think depending on what kind of feedback we get, we can start to see, well, what would it look like if we combined this idea and that idea?
Mhm.
Okay.
Nancy?
Is there anything else? Nancy?
I want to keep thinking about it. I think that, the ideas are sorry, good. I think I've already expressed this to Polly. I'm not crazy about the temporary sculpture, because I think that that's something that shouldn't be in the plan. I think that's the reason is not that it's not a good idea, because it is a good idea to have, always have people making sculpture and putting them around town, but to make it part of an ongoing project that we'd have to commit to, because it's going to require a lot of organization and someone to oversee it, and funding too. So that's something that could happen in the future, no matter what kind of park it is, just like we created, or the town had that enable people to do the last competition, participate in that.
Okay.
That's a minor point, but
And I think we'll go through in more detail at our next meeting, which we also, Joe, have to schedule. So we might want to move on to comments and figuring out a date for and nature of our next meeting.
Okay, so let me reframe, then I think we've got, the working group got some feedback from the whole group. And clearly you guys start taking this to like the next level. So what we'll do is we'll pull out, comments public,
Joe, you're
and
breaking
then
up
when
again.
that's done, we'll come back whole. How about now?
Okay, start over. You didn't go for very long, but you literally die and we miss everything you say.
Will be the first time. Is this okay now?
We can hear you now.
Yeah. So let's take some space for public comment on this plan or anything. And then after we're done with that, we'll have the group kind of set the task for the working group going ahead, and we'll plan our next meeting.
Okay.
So do we have any public comment? Dennis,
I do.
turn on your video. I assume you'd like to speak. Hey, Dennis.
Can you hear me? I think this is great. I think you're going in the right direction. You're opening it up and looking for broader comments on what's being done here, and I think that's just what I think is what you should be doing. But I did have a need for clarification. You've moved into a mode that's talking about this as a memorial park, not a permanent memorial. So now I don't have in front of me your charge from the select board, but I don't remember that they asked you to create a whole park here. As you know, my concerns are eating up green space, and Kate had an interesting idea, but what you're doing is taking up more of the space for, if you went in that direction, for memorial items that you would have on it. So I'm in favor of taking up as little space as possible. So I'm curious about why you've moved to calling this the park and whether it's part of your mandate rather than simply looking at a memorial that would go on this space in some place.
Thank you,
Well,
Dan.
I would say, yeah, okay. It's a moving target, Dennis. I mean, not target, but it's a moving thing, and we're evolving as everything else is. And I think you hit on it from the very start. This has got to be a reflective green space, and we're not leaving that, but something is very likely to go there. I think that's where we're at. So we're very close on this, and hopefully over time we'll get closer.
Yeah, I've given into the fact that something will be there. That I'm fine with. It's just figuring out what's going to be there, and of course, I want it to be as minimal as possible. I understand the comment that were made about the Revolutionary War soldiers who are more white guys. There would be room there, and I'm going back against what I just said. There might be space for something simple there that would be separated from the main memorial that you're thinking of doing on this space. They wouldn't necessarily have to be connected, but I think they have to be recognized.
So there we go, though, Dennis. Exactly the difficulty of this, it grows, doesn't it? Joe Hibbard, did you want to say something or? No. Okay.
Yes, just that in the very beginning, when I first talked with Gary Clayton, what he showed me was, I think it was a directive from the select board, and it basically said a memorial park. And I think working with the committee, we said it was always going to be a park and consistent with that definition. And the idea was to embed a memorial within that park setting. So it's not something we went from memorial to park.
I'd like to at some point see your charge from the select board that says you're creating a park. That's not my understanding of what I've seen. But anyway, if that's true, I stand corrected.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, well, if there are no other comments, let's try to figure out the next steps here, because as we say, we're approaching the 19th of April.
So I guess my question would be time working
Oh,
dear.
dear.
A couple weeks. No.
Again, we lost you, Joe. So we have a schedule basically next Thursday. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Are you in West Concord, Joe? It should be worse here.
I'm acting like Concord Center.
Yeah, right.
That's where I am.
Okay. Well, somehow,
Can
but
you hear
yes,
me now?
yes, go ahead.
I mean, question is how much time does the working group need? Would they need a week, 2 weeks? What would be useful when it's worth to come back together again? More than 2 weeks?
I think it depends what
What?
this group wants us to do. Because
Yeah.
it kind of feels like we could keep working on this forever. And I think Joe and I are ready to let more people get involved.
So-
Are we, Joe? I don't want to speak for you.
Before we go any further, can we please clear up Dennis's question about the park? Because that's sort of our, who do we
Well,
ask?
I think is that at the executive committee? Should we? Gary would be the one to know because the executive committee got the charge from the select board. We
Should
got
we-
the charge from the
Yeah.
executive committee.
Can you follow up with Gary? And
I'll
'cause
check
he'll
with
know.
Gary on
He'll have
that.
it in his big old notebook.
Thank you.
Yes.
I
His
think the
monster
original
notebook.
wording was, original wording had the words pocket park.
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll ask Gary on that. This is
Yeah.
in another era, Gary would have been here, but he's got other things to do, as other people on these Zooms will. So I think that our next meeting needs to be whole group, given what you've said, Polly, where we really didn't go through this in detail yet. And I think that's what the working group needs, is to really just go through it a little bit more thoughtfully and get everybody's minds on this. If we can, Polly?
Well, I was just going to say, I feel as though one of the really fundamental things that we need to do is decide how we're going to use it, because it's kind of an outline right now that I think has some flexibility built into it. But until we know, I mean,
I think
do we
what
want to create a written document? I mean, we've talked about wanting to do everything here, and yeah, Joe.
I think one of the best ways to do that is create a venue and just say, we're going to take this and make it a presentation that's going to be given to this audience, a wide audience at the library, or the Council of Aging after Wednesday lunch. Just pick one and force yourselves to make a presentation for that one, or force ourselves to do that, and that might sort it out. Instead of trying to do everything for everyone, just pick one venue and go for it.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
and I think that Polly and I also were aware that, in the communication plan, this one form it could take would be presentations, that the other forms would be something in local media
I can make a video.
or a web page, and each one of those is a slightly different assignment. So we see it as being pretty formidable at this point as to, are we working on a local media distribution item, or are we working on a presentation for a group of, small group of individuals?
You could also create sort of things in town with QR codes where somebody, or maybe they couldn't do that in town. Can you do QR codes
You can
in
try.
Monument Square? I don't know. But that
We need some tech
that-
help there.
One day we'll be able to. April 19th.
April 19th, when they have the cows,
And
when the
I'll run
cows.
around on April 19th like this.
But I mean, that would be a way to get a lot of feedback, to
Yeah.
have them go to Joe Palumbo giving an idea of what each concept is. Maybe there's Krista's talking about the trees and one QR code. Joe's talking about we have climate justice, we have social justice, and we have Revolutionary War dead. Have three things that we can talk about, and they each have a spot. I mean, that way the people are coming to it and they are in the space, seeing, hearing about it. It's kind of like when you go to the Northbridge Park and there's the little buttons you push and the sort of underwater voice of somebody's telling you about the battle.
Good old Concord.
It's actually very cute. But so something along those lines. I don't know exactly what. But.
Well, that also would argue that having something like that available for like Ag Day and events where people are around
Or
might be,
April 19th. Yeah.
well, that's that would be great, but yeah. Okay.
That's easy. That could happen. I don't see any way. I mean, QR codes, I can make one in 10 minutes. I mean, that's easy to make, you know.
It's where do we put them, I guess.
On sticks, on some, no. It's just
We could, okay, excellent. Kim.
staple
So-
them to trees. I don't know. We haven't figured out.
Oh,
Yeah, this is great. Good to get your creativity on this. So the question then is, we return to our next meeting and the nature of our next meeting. And given what you have just said, Kate, I'm going to stay with the idea unless I get pushback that we meet in whole group and now brainstorm together all of this stuff and come up with any other comments, because I think what Joe, Polly, and to some degree you, Kate, have come up with here, we can keep fine tuning it, but I think until we put it into some slots for things, it's just gonna, we, you know, working alone on it is not gonna bring it to any further development, I'm thinking. So when could we all, do we agree with that, or is that fair? Do we all want to meet the next time? So what that gets us to our calendar. What would be timing that would work? We are scheduled for a Zoom next
Thursday.
next Thursday. Is that work for
I
everybody?
would, if
Yeah,
I
Joe.
can't be there next Thursday is because we have the big thing on the 15th, the next day, but if I don't have to be there. If you all have a quorum, go right ahead and meet. Otherwise, I can't be at the next one. But the Thursday after should be okay, but I'm fine any way you want to do it.
Well, gang, what do you think? Would 2 weeks be good to work on this, to sit down and really look at this? Come up, if everybody took as homework, where would we present it? Maybe if Joe and Polly, you wanted to play it out at one event, is that asking too much? Do you know, pick one event and see what this plan might look like if presented there?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what we want is feedback. So I think the presentation is only one piece of it. I think that thinking about how do we get constructive feedback, how do we spark ideas, how do we even, do we sit around a table, or do we, there's more to it than just the framing of the conversation, I think. And I think maybe that's what we need to talk about when we next meet. And
Okay.
the audience. I mean, if we're doing something with high school students, it's going to look one way. If we're doing something with the Rotary Club, it's going to be something quite different, I think.
So I
And
think that what Joe said, not to interrupt, but I of course did, is that if we break it down into a piece right now, just select, not right now, but select one event
right.
and go through all the pieces, like at the end of that event, how do we get the feedback for that event? And I think we'll probably have to do that for several different iterations, including an inclusion in the bridge. How do we leave a email of one of us or several of us to get feedback on that? So I think it really does make sense. It's a big project, but if we break it down into littler pieces, like one event, that will help. And that would argue, Polly, since feedback is that we do meet next Thursday, even Joe, if you're going to be busy, and at least get the feedback we could get from the majority of the group.
As long as you have 4 people, you're good to go.
Yeah, does that, but I'm looking for, feedback from all of you right now. We have a standing Zoom on Thursday. We could go to the following Thursday, the 20th. And I'm going to say that probably if we meet on the 20th, that could very well be close to the last meeting before the 19th. I think, Joe, you're going to probably become a pumpkin shortly after that, if you're not already one. I don't know what other people have in mind.
I think we should keep going. We've got good momentum now. I think it would be helpful to just stick with next week and
Okay.
we'll miss
So,
it.
so do you, and Nancy, you'll be back, correct? How do you feel about meeting in person?
I prefer it.
I prefer it.
It's fine with
Mhm.
me.
Fine with
Fine.
me.
It works for me if it's the same time.
If we do it at 5?
5 would be better. Yeah, 5 works for me. 4 would
Wait,
not.
what's next Thursday?
So we right now could look at Thursday, the 13th at 5 p.m. in person if I can get a room at the library. Uh-oh, Kate is grimacing.
Nope, I can do it. I have something from at 6:30. I'm fine.
Okay, well, we're really going to try to stay with the 1 hour bracket because of that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
so is that probably messes up that
Library,
evening for you,
is the
but
library open on Thursday at 5?
well, usually it is because
Yeah.
we usually have
Remember
meetings.
now.
I will check. I will check. I mean,
They
we've
don't
all usually
close
had
till
our
8.
meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that I will check with them tomorrow and see
You
if
know,
we,
in Fowler, sometimes if you can't get in, Fowler looks like it's not, but if you click through, it's often open late in the afternoon.
yeah. Well, I mean, traditionally we've had our meetings on Thursdays at the
Yeah.
library. So anyway,
I mean, is Kai's Road another possibility? Because I don't know what time the library closes on a Thursday. It's a hard close, right?
We can meet here. Then it's so easy for me to get to my
That would be
6:30.
great.
And it's
I was
so
going to
nice.
suggest that, but I didn't want to presume anything.
Oh no, that would be really good.
You
Actually.
So
just have
shall
to
we-
make sure that it's open to the public and the doors are
Oh,
wide
that's
open. You
right.
can't meet in a private location unless it's open. Like
Oh,
someone has
so
to be
that
able to
other
walk up.
people who can come in.
So
Yeah,
public
that's
can
all
come
right with
in.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
um,
I guess it needs to be posted.
Yeah.
well, that I'll take care of that. I've got to get it in 48 hours before, before they are, before we have our meeting. Um,
Does it
it
need to be ADA?
It says Thursday, the library is open 9 to 8 p.m., 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So the question, Kate, is
Uh-huh.
it'd be easier at your place if you're happy doing that and can leave it open.
No, if it's easier for you guys, I 5 to 6, I can manage that.
I don't think, does it matter? Do we have comfortable places to sit in your place? Of course we do.
Yeah, we have a
But it
lot
does
of
need to
chairs.
be ADA and everything, right?
What?
It needs to be a place that everybody can access, which I think the Concord Art is, but just to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many, if we have a lot of extras, it would be good to
This thing.
know.
Uh,
Maybe the library's better. I
Okay,
don't want to like
I'll
mess it up.
explore and I'll be in touch with you, Kate,
Yeah.
if
Okay.
Guys figured
depending
out.
how things go. All right, good. I think that at least
Okay.
gives us the next step. Joe?
Can I be heard? So save the date if you haven't already. March 15th at Umbrella, 3 o'clock is the Patriots of Color Fight for Freedom launch. There's music, there's performance, there's actors, it's gonna be the coolest thing ever. It's free, 3 to 5 on March 15th.
Is
That's
that a
my-
Saturday?
It's a Saturday, yeah.
Okay.
It's all ages, open
Is
to
it
the
going to be
public.
recorded in any way so we can?
Yeah, it's
watch later?
re-recorded, and I think they're gonna live stream it too. But
Oh, great.
Are you
Okay.
going to have that same drumming band that you had
I
for
don't
Ellen
know.
Garrison? Oh,
We'll have to
come
see.
on. A little teaser? Come on.
Laura and I are going. We already signed up.
Yeah, we go.
It's called Patriots of Color is the title, right,
Fight
Joe?
for freedom. Fight for freedom.
Fight for Freedom. Anyway, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
All right, great. If that's
So-
it, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting, Polly, at 6:10. We did pretty well.